Thank you very much, Chris. Appreciate the kind introduction. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Merci de l'invitation d'être ici parmi vous aujourd'hui. Chris has been a great champion of the working people of Windsor and right across Canada. In particular, I congratulate him on his bill, the tax fairness for traveling trades workers, which will give the hardworking people who move themselves across this country to build things, dig things, move things, and fix things the same fairness that CEOs of big corporations gets. That is the ability to expense the cost of getting where they're going and staying where they are. And so congratulations, my friend Chris is dedicated not only to the workers but the retirees and the seniors. When I got over to Windsor to visit his fine city, he said that the most important thing was to go and visit our seniors who built this country. I said, Chris, they're not going to want to see some politician from Ottawa. He said, no, you're going to be a big star. So we went into the seniors' home, and I walked up to a lady, and I said, do you know who I am? She said, no, but if you ask the nurse, she'll tell you who you are. So it's good to be made humble from time to time. I think Sean and Robert would agree with that. And thanks to both of them for including me here today and for the chance to get to know both of them over the last several months. Sean and I have got to know each other over the odd bowl of wings and mug of beer and meeting with all of your leaders, and also, more importantly, going out to the ground and seeing the training facilities that you have across this country in partnership with individual trades has inspired me. And we need some inspiration, because obviously we're going through a terrible time in Canada today. The cost of everything is rising. Hard work no longer pays. Housing costs have doubled in a decade. Drugs, disorder, crime, and chaos reign in the street, and the government's only answer is to ban hunting rifles. And finally, people feel divided and controlled in their own country. But we're going to turn all that hurt into hope. And the hope that I have comes from the workers that I've seen in your shops across the country. I've had a chance to go and visit the iron workers, the welders, the electricians, and so many others. They even hand me the odd tool or torch, and I've yet to lose a finger or sear off my eyebrows, which means I made it through the first day, but I'm a long way from my red seal, Sean. But in meeting with these people that you represent and for whom you fight, to have solid agreements, fair compensation, and safe working conditions, remind me that this needs to once again be a country that works for the people who do the work. And that starts by bringing home lower prices. We know why prices are raging out of control here right now. $500 billion of inflationary deficits. That is to say, the doubling of our national debt in the last 8 years alone mean more dollars chasing fewer goods, which leads to higher prices. Now, some make excuses and say, well, there's inflation everywhere. Well, there's inflation everywhere that they're printing money. So in other jurisdictions with irresponsible governments that are borrowing and printing, yes, inflation is raging out of control. In places like Switzerland, Japan, and South Korea, where they have shown discipline in their spending, they have kept inflation low. Now, this inflation is very good news for the super rich, those that live off their assets. Why? Because those assets go up in market price. They actually get richer when governments print money and inflate asset values. But workers get poorer because the purchasing power of their paycheck goes down. It is a massive wealth transfer from the have-nots to the have-yachts. By the way, this wealth is almost entirely tax-free because those who accumulate it don't pay income tax on it. They simply borrow against it to buy more assets, which inflate yet further and raise the price of everyone else. This attack on the paychecks of our people must come to an end. That's why a Conservative government led by Pierre Poilievre will have a common-sense plan to bring the cost of living under control, starting with capping government spending. A dollar-for-dollar law will require government live by the same laws of scarcity that apply to the single mom raising her kids on a minimum wage or the small business employing people. Every new dollar of spending will have to be matched with a dollar of savings to pay for it. We'll get rid of the excessive contracting out of government work to high-priced consultants and bring that work inside to the unionized public servants who are capable and trained to do it. And we will get rid of the carbon tax to lower, which is, by the way, planned to go up to 41 cents a liter. That's just the gas and diesel component. We will be getting rid of that tax, and we will use technology and not taxes to fight climate change, details of which I'll mention in a moment. In other words, we're going to bring down the cost of government to bring down the cost of living and bring up the purchasing power of the working people. That brings me to my second point. We need to bring home powerful paychecks to this country. It no longer pays to work. The laborer, the LiUNA laborer, who's a single mom making 60 grand a year with 3 kids, she earns another $1. She loses 80 cents today. Her child benefit is clawed back. She pays more income tax, payroll tax, gas tax, and carbon tax to get to work. 80 cents lost out of the next $1 earned. That's not my number, that's the finance department's number. So if she's on a $25 an hour wage, she keeps $5 of that extra hour of work. No wonder we can't ask our workers to take another shift. It doesn't get them anything. No one should be expected to work for $5 an hour. That's why a Poilievre-led government will have a common-sense reform of both our programs and our taxes so that people bring home more of each dollar they earn and hard work actually pays off. We have to bring home made-in-Canada paychecks. We're losing jobs and paychecks to other countries because this government is blocking our resource sector. It's not doing anything for the environment to ship our energy jobs to Saudi Arabia or our refinery jobs to China when we could bring them home to Canada. And why are they leaving? Why are these jobs happening abroad and not at home? Well, because C-69 makes it impossible to build pipelines in this country. Furthermore, we're now ranked 64th in the OECD, 64th in the world and second last in the OECD for the time it takes to get a building permit. If a project can be built in Texas or in Australia in an approval time of 90 days, and it's going to take 7 or 8 years to get to a maybe in Canada, we know the money's leaving. That's why Canadians invest $800 billion more abroad than the rest of the world invests here at home. So when Trudeau took office, there were 15 proposed LNG liquefaction facilities. 0 have been complete. Our government says there's no business case for it. Well, somebody forgot to tell Qatar, which has doubled its natural gas liquefaction capacity. Someone forgot to tell the Mexicans, who are now set to bypass us in natural gas production. Someone forgot to tell the Americans, who have built 7 facilities in the time that we've built 0. These are massive opportunities, not only to bring jobs home, but also to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by displacing dirty foreign coal. The one project that is under construction, LNG Canada in Kitimat, is a $40 billion project, a massive project that generates enormous paychecks for tradespeople. The problem is we need 10 or 15 just like it. We have 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas beneath our feet. We have the shortest shipping distances to Europe and Asia. And we have cold weather, which actually makes it 25% cheaper to liquefy gas here than it does in the southern United States. So when I'm Prime Minister, I will greenlight LNG liquefaction so that we can cool that gas to minus 161 degrees, put it on a ship to Asia to replace dirty coal in that continent, ship it off to Europe to take dollars away from Putin and turn it into paychecks for our people in this country. And with the green transition, we need to be the leaders in electrification. We have the 6th biggest supply of lithium on planet Earth. We did not mine a single tablespoon of this stuff in the most recent recorded year. And the one mine that's almost operational, the government sold to China so that China will get all of that lithium for its processing there. We need to change our mining regulations so we can approve a project within a year to a year and a half rather than up to 25 years so that we can bring home those mining jobs and that clean green production to Canada, where it can be done using clean hydroelectricity and other emissions-free upstream production. And speaking of electricity, there's no way to win the war against climate change that doesn't involve nuclear energy. We need small modular nuclear reactors in the West and New Brunswick. We need more nuclear capacity in Ontario. That is the only way to add new emissions-free baseload power in order to replace coal and other fossil fuel sources. So I will speed up the safe approval of nuclear projects here in Canada. And finally, hydrogen may be one of the main fuel sources to power transportation in the future. One of the ways to get there is to allow natural gas production now for facilities that could eventually be converted over. We will back up those projects by green-lighting green projects more quickly. Powerful paychecks means tax fairness, and we, under my government, will make sure that you as workers get the same full deduction, not a $4,000 capped tax credit, but a full deduction for all of the traveling and lodging and meals related to the work of a tradesman. If you're the CEO of Royal Bank, you get in your private jet, you can write that off. Not $4,000, that would barely get you 100 kilometers in the sky, but the whole thing, every time you use it. But the government wants to give $4 grand to a trades worker who's in Timmins one day, in Fort Mac the next day, then out in the offshore in Newfoundland the month after that. That is impossible. We should allow all of the expenses associated with earning the income to be deductible from the income taxes. That's the principle of the tax system, and it's about time we had tax fairness for that, and I will deliver that by passing Chris Lewis's private member's bill. Finally, we need to bring homes that our people can afford. We now live in a country where the people who build our homes cannot afford to live in them. That is the hard reality. It now costs $2,500 in Toronto to rent a room in a townhouse, not a one-room townhouse, one room in a townhouse. We have 3 couples sharing a small 1,400 square foot townhouse. These are working families that 40 years ago would have been able to afford their own standalone home with a yard, and now we're supposed to be further ahead, but we're dividing up existing homes. It is unacceptable. Why do we have this problem? Why is it that housing is almost twice as expensive in Canada than it is in the United States, even though they have 10 times the population on a smaller landmass? Why is it that housing in Toronto is more expensive than in Singapore, which is an island with more people, more money, and less land? The answer is we can't get things built in this country. It now costs $600,000 of red tape for every unit of housing in Vancouver, and about $350,000 in Toronto. That's why we have the fewest houses per capita of any country in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. But we need to speed up and lower the cost of permitting. I realize that this is provincial and municipal, but infrastructure is federal. And we are asked to give tens of billions of federal infrastructure dollars to our cities for things like housing. I will be linking those dollars to the number of houses that get completed. In other words, big cities will need to get houses completed in order to get infrastructure dollars. I will cut back infrastructure from cities that block construction and give building bonuses to those that speed it up. I will require every federally funded transit station be surrounded by high-density housing, and maybe even like in Hong Kong, where they build the housing on top of the stations to help with the cost, but also to ensure that young people and seniors don't even need to own a car. We have 37,000 federal buildings with massive vacancy rates. I will be selling off 6,000 of those buildings, or the equivalent of 15% of all of the federal buildings, so that they can be converted into new housing. And finally, we will back up the trades. We need more building trades people. I will ensure that trades funding equals the same as university funding. Not only will we have the same esteem, but we will have the same per student or per apprentice funding for both. And we will back up union-based training. Things like the UTIP program. If I can give the government some credit, that has been a good program that needs to be expanded, and the applications need to be processed more quickly. And I will allow unions to sponsor temporary foreign workers with the goal of turning them into permanent residents and citizens in this country, and also, hopefully, lifelong members of your union, so that we can bring home the tradespeople that we need. So to wrap up, my friends, the reality is you're the ones building the country. For too long, we've been obsessed with the people in the corner office who make all the big decisions, but who don't do the work on the ground. We need to focus on making this the country that works for the people who do the work. Often these are called the ordinary people, but I think I don't have to tell any of you this. They are not ordinary. They are extraordinary. That Liona laborer who's out on a highway somewhere fixing up what our wheels have broken down under the hot sun, only to come home and teach her kid math at 9 p.m. at night and balance her budget on a working class salary. She's not ordinary. She's extraordinary. The electrician who, from the IBEW, who captures lightning, runs it through a copper wire, lights up this room, tames the most powerful force in nature, is not ordinary. He is extraordinary. The mechanic that can take apart and put back together an engine block is not ordinary. He is extraordinary. These people deserve to be masters in their own country. They deserve a country that works for them, a country that is based on the common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much.